Calamity Jane with the chickens in the sun. Just sleep with Miss Mary, UK on the run. D-Box, we're leading strong and having fun. Together we're shining. Our journey's just begun.
All right.
I love
Hello,
that
everyone.
thing.
Hello.
Hello.
So Sandra G is here. She's saying she's listening at work. Who else would want to say anything? Hadreen, you're chairmaster today.
Yes, I am chairmaster today. How's everyone doing? We got Delilah in the chat. We got Felicia Marie B in the chat.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
We got Off-Grid World in the chat. Kate in the chat. Okay, and today we have Kim J and Reset with Anissa online with us today.
Hello. Community.
All right, ladies, let's introduce ourselves. We'll start with you, Kim J.
Okay.
Just introduce yourself.
I am Kim J of Kim J Sweet Healthy Life. I thank you all for coming today to check in on us. Yes, behind the scenes. We just want to share and spread some love in our GL1P community. GLP1 community, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm over here living a sweet, healthy life on my channel.
All right, then. All right, Miss Anissa.
Hi, I'm Anissa from Reset with Anissa. I'm happy to be here, talk about how I'm trying to, do a 180 and reverse this type 2 diabetes and, live a long, healthy life.
Sounds good.
Yes.
All right, Miss Calamity Jane.
Perfect. Calamity Jane, everyone. Y'all know I'm going to geek out about this particular topic, as are Anissa and Kim J. I am someone who, as some of you know, is managing type 1 diabetes. And so we're just going to talk all things A1C and all the fun things that go with it. I know in the chat, we're going to have some people that resonate. So I'm just really excited to be here. So I'll toss it to Joe.
Hey, it's me, Joe, from Joe Sleep and Slim Down Journey, and I've been outside today.
All right. All right.
So I'm going to be keeping an eye on all 5 of the chats today. So I'm going to turn myself on mute, and I will just jump in every now and again when I've got a question to ask. So, folks, have a great one today.
And last but not
least,
I'm Hadreen Annette, aka The Boss Way. And I am here today I got to run the community. it's all about me. Joe put me out. But yeah, so I got the questions. Everybody ready? Well, we got more people in the audience. We got Traveling T. We got Sandra G. We got Hermione. Oh, nice. We got Losing It Grace. We got Linda's Journey. If You Seek Amy. Delilah Rodriguez. Darium is here. Empower Wellness by Teddy is here. Coach Mean Reen is here. Okay, I think Kim J, you up here on the panel. Word Muscle is here. Patrice Denise is here. Cookie's in the house. Amy Luzin is here. Michelle Smira is here. And that's all for now. So let's get started. Would everyone like to say what they're grateful for today before we get to the questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anissa, you want to start?
Sure. I think I'm really grateful for this GLP-1 community online. After, I just was looking up things on YouTube, and I don't know who I found first, but I think I might have found Downsizing Diva, and then that led to Joe and led to like all of these other people. And I've just learned so much and not felt so hopeless. So I'm grateful for the community.
Okay.
I too am grateful for the community. I'm grateful to be alive and well, much better than I was before I started my journey. And I thank God for that.
Amen.
And I'll share it to the community. I'll be, because they're going to come up. I'm grateful for my little chickens. They make me happy, and my three little
Yeah.
kitty cats at the house and family. I know it's a time to be blessed, and I know Joe's going to talk about it. So I don't want to outshine her spotlight, but in her live today, she got to encounter some youth, and it was just a joy to see them just excited about life, about what's ahead for them, and so it was a really touching moment. But I'll toss it to you, Joe.
Well, that wasn't going to be mine, Jen. So I'm glad you
Oh,
reminded me to remember the youths. Of course, I'm very grateful for the community. I'm very grateful to Miss Mary. She is wearing the blue for the Diabetes
yeah.
Blues Day.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I'm very, very grateful to have been able to get out and meet the youth and let the youth get to know the community. It was a win-win, winner-winner chicken dinner. Sorry about mentioning chicken dinners.
It's okay. I still eat chicken. There's tortilla chicken soup on the stove. You're good. I just don't eat my chickens.
Look, I had chicken too today.
There you go.
Look, I love me some chicken. Look.
Yeah.
Good, Adrienne.
Well, I'm grateful for friendship. I mean, it's a community, but I'm claiming everybody as friends. So I'm grateful
Yes.
for friendship.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
All right, let's get the party started. All right. What exactly is an A1C or HbA1c, and how does it differ from daily blood glucose checks?
So I'll jump in real quick on that one, and then Kim and Anissa, feel free to just kind of how, because I still understand it from like old school days. So I think I was diagnosed in 1993, 94. But quite simply, it's an average, typically 3-month average of all your blood sugar readings, or what they're able to attain. It's an estimate, and it's a pretty accurate estimate. It's not too off base, but how it's different from daily. Um, how many of us kind of secretly have weighed in more than once a day and we get a different number? Everyone raise your hand if you're guilty of that. Well, very
Me.
similar. So I could literally and I'm not going to demo it now because that's not going to be an exciting live. I could literally test all 10 fingers and it will be a different blood sugar reading even within the same 5 minutes.
Wow.
So it daily is important, especially if you're trying to control it and things like that. It's essential. But that's really the biggest difference is you're gonna get an estimate versus that kind of just in time reading.
Okay.
So yes, normally when doctors actually test your A1C, they normally test it every year, initially, and then when they find out that you have, say, for instance, type 2 diabetes, then they'll test it depending on how bad your diabetes is, or how much your A1C has gone up. So just to talk about, I don't know if we're talking about the levels here at this time, if that's okay to
We
talk
can.
about, but
Yes, please.
when it comes to A1C, you want to make sure a normal range, and this is what we all want to be in, right? It's anything below 5.7%. And then the pre-diabetic range is between 5.7 and 6.4. And then the diabetic range is from 6.5 and anything higher. So for people that may have type 2 diabetes, when we're talking about managing our diabetes, they want to make sure at least it's around between 6.5 and 7%. Of course, if it's lower, that's awesome. But, if they can get it to that point between 6.5 and 7, then that's, perfect in their eyes, because a lot of times some people just can't get it back down to the normal range. So, yes.
Okay.
So, of course, we're using, maybe insulin. We're using, other medications like this GLP-1 medication that some people are on, or other Jardiance, and I'm just naming some of the things, some of the medication that a lot of people know about. So that's what we use to make sure that we are trying to get back into that range. But yes, that's what I wanted to add to it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, for me, definitely when I first, was diagnosed, my A1C was at the 6.5. So I was asked to come back like a year later for it. But now that it went, super, super duper, high, I go back every 3 months. As a matter of fact, I go back on October 20th. Hopefully I'm in the normal range by now. But as I realize now, like as I got sicker and sicker, I really probably needed to test more often, because when I was first diagnosed, I could test 2 hours after eating and everything had come back down. But as the illness progressed and I didn't take care of myself, it could take 4, 5, 6 hours for it to come back down. And when my A1C was 14.1, the average was almost, I guess, 400, which meant it was never coming down. And so I guess that's because at that point, like, I guess I had no insulin sensitivity. My body could, I guess, release a lot and just nothing was happening. So I don't have to test as often now, because I am still very sensitive to carbohydrates. It comes back down within 3 hours now instead of just all day, but I'm still not quite there. But if I eat the things that I should be eating, I don't have to test except for like once a day. Now we're more concerned about my glucose in the morning.
And whereas
I forgot to say something about, I'm sorry, I forgot to say that once if they find out that you are diabetic, then you would normally get your A1C tested through blood work, could every 6 months or to a year. So it just depends, like I said, on how high it is. So like for me, when my A1C, when I found out I had diabetes, I was at 15.1, which is like 3 times the normal range. And so of course I had to go to the hospital. I had to stay in there for 2 days. They had to get my glucose levels down. And then they kept testing my blood. I'm sorry, my A1C, my hemoglobin A1C, or what we consider A1C, every couple weeks. And then once I got down to a certain range, then that's when they kind of slowed down on it. And then once I got to like back on the charts, which is the doctors have charts that they say, okay, anything over 10 is dangerously high. It's to a point wherein it could be to where you can pass from it, or stroke out or something like that. So at least once you get down to actually, on that chart again, under that 10, then, then they can kind of slow down a little bit and then just see how the blood sugars go down, and they'll test a little bit, further apart. But I know for me, they were testing like every chance they can get, so that's how it goes. But I forgot to say with the blood glucose ranges, because we talked about that a little bit, the fasting blood glucose, we want to make sure that it is 70 to 99 for a person that doesn't have diabetes. But if you have diabetes, then it can kind of go up to, 126, in the morning for fasting. And then of course, there are other glucose levels that you're looking at as far as like after meals and things of that nature. So just want to say that. And then you don't want to go under 70 deciliters, on your fasting glucose, or really at any time during the day. All right. I'm sorry, Jane. Go ahead.
It's okay. There's some questions coming up, so it's good to get at the beginning, and it's good to repeat, because repeat 3 times. That's how we learn.
Right,
Three
right.
repetitions. So I do need to clarify, and I want to add, and Kim, you did say it. Your medical team will guide you how often you're going, regardless of the level of sensitivity. So I'm as a type, and I do want to make sure when we're speaking, and we'll get to this in a second, so I won't do it here. Well, I'll go into it because it's not a direct question. So there are multiple types of diabetes. So the 3 prevalent ones are type 1. So that is insulin is you're producing little to no insulin. Type 2, that's your insulin resistance. Typically in the past, it did happen with primarily adults, but I would say over the last 20 to 30 years, more adolescents are getting type 2. There is digestional diabetes, which there may be many in the chat that is very common. And with gestational diabetes, there is a possibility, higher possibility, that someone can then develop type 2 potentially. They have come out. So those are the 3 primary. Then there are like 6 subcategories. There's like a type 1.5, which is also called LADA, and I'll put the definitions here, or Hermione is able to look them up. But I'll put the definitions. That the LADA, which is the latent, it's a late term type diabetes. It mimics both type 1 and type 2. There's a MODY diabetes, and that kind of mimics. I mean, there's just a lot. And in the last 2 months, they've even discovered a type 5 diabetes, which is related to children who are malnourished or not getting the right nutrients as children, that later develop a type of that malnutrition stays with them, and they develop a resistance to insulin resistance. And even with type 1s, because of the long-term use of insulin, they do develop resistance to insulin over time. So it is, when one of the things within the community, it is very important that and I know sometimes we don't like to label ourselves, but it is very important that we say, I'm a type something, because the treatment of something is going to be different. And then the whole remission conversation is different for all the types of diabetes. So we do want to be careful about that. So I see my doctor, and I love that I see my doctor every 3 months and get blood work, because they test for everything. So, sometimes when I have very few surprise things that show up, because I'm seeing my doctor every 3 months. And then for A1C, and Kim, thank you love that you went over this as far as sort of normal, for type 1s, they're happy if you're under 7. If you never get to 5, you never get to 5. Only because there's always the fear of hypoglycemia. That's all. That is the forever fear that follows type 1 diabetics. Why the FDA delays approving things. But we'll get into that later, because I know there's lots more questions and stuff. So, but no, this is fun.
Okay, well, I have a question, because sorry, but
oh no, good.
Glucose and A1C, is that 2 different things, 2 different tests?
So glucose. So your glucose meter. Oh, and I don't have my purse here. So I do oh, there it is. I have an insulin pump, and I don't know how to get y'all to see that. So this insulin pump, every 5 minutes, this is testing. So it's not actually testing my glucose. It's testing, I'll throw in the substance here. It's testing the substance around the blood. So every 5 minutes, this is getting checked, and it's like a train. So it's monitoring what's ahead, and it's monitoring what's behind. So if it starts raising, if it starts going up and up and up, it's going to say, hey, your blood sugar is going up. You have, within the next 15 minutes, you're going to reach what Kim said about the 180s and things like that. You're about to hit those numbers. Start treating. And then it does the same for when it starts going down. So it's always kind of trailing. So your glucose your glucose meter, there's different versions. This is going to be your daily checks, is what you're testing. What you're testing. And before this, I tested 4 times a day. But that, again, I'm a type 1. My dad was a type 2. He tested, but he was a type 2 insulin dependent and body habitus was large, and he had end-stage renal failure. So he's testing a lot more than once a day. And it's fasting, which what Delilah reminded us of. I would test it fasting before, and 4 was the minimum. So fasting before meals, what Anissa said, about 2 hours after meals, and that's 3 meals a day, and then before bed. And then if I felt a low coming on, I would test then. So the minimum was 4 times a day. And not every type 1 is like that. I can't say that. Not every type 2 is like that, and not every gestate. And some of y'all can speak to sort of what they recommend for gestational diabetes.
We have a question. We've got a question that's coming from Grace, from Loosen It Grace. It came in at 4:38, Hadreen.
There we go. Oh, nope. Hold on.
One above.
There you go.
So you can ask the question, Hadreen.
Does remission count as reversing diabetes?
I'll let Kim and Anissa answer that.
Shall we clarify the order of answering? So Anissa first,
Yeah.
Kim, and then Clam, and then join in the conversation afterwards.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't say that I'm that familiar with remission. The terminology that my healthcare providers have used for me is reversing it, because they felt that if I should go back to the same habits, I'm a type 2 diabetic, if I didn't say. If I go back to the same habits where I'm eating many carbohydrates above my carbohydrate tolerance, and lack of movement and lack of sleep, my diabetes will again be probably in the A1C range of above 6.5. When I last did it, it was 6.7, and that was August. And so the way they've talked to me is that eventually I'll be able to eat more carbohydrates, but they use the term reversal because it's going to be dependent upon my habits for the rest of my life.
Kim?
Okay, so remission, we're talking, okay, so say if your blood sugar levels, and I'm thinking for a type 2 diabetic. So when I'm talking type 2, okay? I think Jane will, of course, she's the expert of type 1, because she's been dealing with it for so many years. But it's like, you're returning to the normal range, and you don't need medications. So that's, but from what doctors say is that, or whoever the powers to be is, says that we will never, once you're diabetic, you're always a diabetic. But that's what the remission part of it is. And then as far as the reversal of it, it's more so like, you're able to achieve the blood glucose normal levels. But sometimes you're on medication still, and sometimes you're not.
Okay.
So
it's reversal is like control. Like your glucose is controlled. It's back to like it's restored to where it should be, but you still may have to use medication. That's your reversal, and then your remission is more so you don't need medication at all, but your glucose levels is controlled without medication. Okay. But the cure of it, they say, look, because I believe in a higher power, but they say that there's no cure to it once you get there.
So with diabetes, it's very much a metabolic condition. So type 1 is autoimmune, type 2 is metabolic, and then the other types, again, it depends on the origin. So one I didn't talk about is type 3. I think they say 3C, which is a steroid-induced diabetes, or you have like the diabetes that's induced because of pancreatitis. It's a removal of your pancreas, oftentimes with or damage to the pancreas. So again, those terms, that's why we got to be careful when we say diabetes, because there's many types, and then there's many things of treatment, and then this language that's around it. For type 1, there are trials out there where they have successfully done either the islet transplants, and that's the I know Delilah's gonna put some language in there. The islets of Langerhans, where they have introduced stem cells to sort of revive those things, and there have been successful cases of those things being revived. Again, this is very recent, so the 5-year window, the 10-year window, we'll see what happens, right? And then there's been successful trials of people getting transplants. Again, not widespread. And then those, again, those are your type 1s. And then those are people who have had pancreases and things like that, the damage, the cancer, whatever the case called, whatever caused the damage, those things being replaced. As it relates to type 2, and the reality of type 2 is, because, you know, you can have family members, you can have whatever, you can become quick experts at this. With type 2, reversal and remission, it's as Kim stated, it's one of those things where, you know, remission, if you're able to sustain and be out of that non-diabetic range for that 6 months without the use of medication, you can use the term remission. And then you can, reversal it's a more permanent state, where after a certain amount of time, you know, you've not been on the medicine, your blood sugars are remaining in that state for a year, 5 years, 10 years, and then perhaps you can use that term reversal. But let's have a reminder here, and why we have to be very careful in the GLP-1 community. What are you taking right now? A GLP-1 that's aiding in your type 2 diabetes. That is a medication that's aiding in that. What happens when we stop taking it? And we don't know yet. There's research out there, and that's what I would say for the answer to this question. I would highly recommend going to the research to say, for those people who are off it, where are they at 3 months, 6 months, a year when it comes to their A1C? And it's something we have to look at.
Okay.
You know, and I'll go back when I was taking care of myself, when I was first diagnosed, and I used diet as a way to manage it. I was able for like 18 months to keep my A1C under, it still was in the pre-diabetic range though, but without metformin, without any medications. I could not lose weight though. So it was a weird state of affairs where I was pre-diabetic, but 250 pounds, that no matter what I did, even with the low carb diet, I couldn't lose weight. So it really, type 2 diabetes, and you're more of an expert, or definitely an expert with type 1, it just wreaks havoc on your body. Like, even when I had the A1C under control, metabolically, it did something so that I could not lose weight. And I wonder if my sleep apnea came from that too. I don't know.
There's some connections out there between the two, for sure, between sleep apnea. And which came first, the chicken or an egg in that conversation? You'd have to talk to you'd have to track your symptoms. How about that? So, yeah.
We have another question?
Oh, did we?
Joe? No, okay. All right, question 2. What's the difference? We probably answered this already, but what's the difference between insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity, and why does it matter for people with diabetes? Kim?
Okay, so insulin resistance, it's something that, people that, but even before they have type 2 diabetes, or diabetes, they that you can have. So it's like the sugar I guess explain it simply, but it's like the sugars don't know where to go in your body. The carbs that you eat, or the sugars that, the simple sugars that you have, or even complex sugars, because complex carbs turn into sugars too, as well as, like, say, table sugars or things of that nature. But those things, they're supposed to go certain places in your body, and then for some reason it's so much of it that we intake, and it doesn't know where to go. That's how I look at it. It doesn't know where to go, so it just goes all over the place. It wreaks havoc everywhere, and in the body. So therefore, you become insulin resistant to insulin. So if you want to kind of talk a little bit, and then sensitivity, of course, is the opposite. Jane, you want to talk a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. I think you said it beautifully. So resistance, I always kind of talk, the best way to describe it, and I'll keep it simple. And this is where I was told, I think Joe, you said your doctor gave you a different example. I think it was when we were talking, but I do the lock and key So imagine a lock and key. How many, so insulin resistance, let's talk about that. How many of us, that those I do it, you're walking, you're about to go into this building, you have a meeting or something's going on, and you're about to go into that meeting, and there is a giant sign on said door that says pull. But here you are ready for your meeting and you push it and you can't get through that door. That's insulin resistance. You have the insulin, you have the things in your body that it's supposed to do its job, but for some reason it malfunctions or it's not working, and that could be due to body habitus, it could be due to sedentary, it could be due what we're learning in dairy and can kind of tell us about it, obesity, what we're the science behind all these things. It could be due to health reasons, stress, all the things, right? Medicine you're on. For whatever reason, that resistance has caused it to not function, right? In a certain way. And so that's the lock and key. You have the key, you have the ability to open the door, but for whatever reason, you can't get through, right? Whereas with type 1 diabetics, and we'll just kind of keep, since that's the who on the panelists are, with type 1 diabetics, I don't have a key. Joe said you can come into my house whenever you want to, Jen, but she didn't give me a key, so I can't get into her house. But what does that mean overall? What is the health reason? As Kim and Anissa have explained, we eat all the nutrients, we eat all the food, we do all these things. If it can't get into our cells can't function. Let's all go back to biology. If our cells can't function, our organs can't function. That's why you end up with numbness. That's why you end up with muscle atrophy. That's why you end up with gangrene and stuff like that, in amputations. Because if your cells aren't fed, your organs aren't fed, death. Right? That's why diabetes is such a serious disease. And that's also because it impacts all of your cells. It impacts your entire body. It starts with microvascular, so your eyes. That's why eye doctors are often the first people to diagnose or to suspect diabetes in a person. Dental, make sure you're going to your dentist, right? Because infections in your teeth can be a big problem if you have an underlying diagnosis of diabetes and you don't know about it. And then, of course, your kidneys, and that's why they put a lot of people on kidney medication and diuretics. And then it builds and builds and builds some macrovascular systems. So that's the long and short of insulin resistance and how it's working. Sensitivity, the opposite. So as you take medication, change your healthy lifestyle, things like that, those, and we'll talk with type 2s, those with insulin in producing in their body. Insulin sensitivity is the degree in which that insulin can now function properly. So all of a sudden you're getting hypoglycemia because you're running around doing your thing, living your life, doing your Zumba, doing your plank challenges, doing your running challenges. Well, now your insulin works. And it might be a little bit too sensitive, and so now you're in a hypoglycemic episode. And then for type 1s, we're getting our insulin put into us. And so I showed it in a video earlier or a few days ago how the first thing my doctor had to do was change my insulin to carb sensitivity ratio. Had to increase it so that I wouldn't drop low too much. Wow. So that's sensitivity, and that is resistance.
And as Jane is, speaking, for me, because I was doing so well with my, getting my A1C down, my blood sugars down, I actually experienced the hypoglycemia when I found out I had type 2 diabetes, July 3rd of 2024, I actually was hyperglycemia. And so, which is my sugars were too high. And then because I did all the things that I could do naturally via fasting, intermittent fasting, eating a low carb diet, of more so the complex carbs and things of that nature. I know Anissa does the same thing. You know, doing that, it helped me out a lot. Exercising, like Jane said, and things of that nature, that helped out a lot. And so therefore, at some point, I had to get off every medicine they had me on. At point, they had me on insulin. You know, then I went on Manjaro. Then I left the insulin alone because I did so well. My A1C came down so well, so fast. Like within 2 months, I was back to, instead of 15.1, I was back to 8.6. You know, and then after that, they took me off of both insulins. They put me on Jardiance. 2 months later, I had to get off of Jardiance, and then I was just on Manjaro. So because of the lifestyle changes I made, so, you know, that's why a lot of times on my channel, I'm talking about, you know, lifestyle changes is very important, not just going up on a medication, you know, so letting you, you know, making sure that you're doing the work as well. And then, you know, so because of that, I ended up having episodes of hypoglycemia, meaning lower blood sugars, too low of blood sugars, because I was doing all the things. So it works well, you know, to do the things that I did, but then it kind of, you know, turned the opposite way to a certain extent. So because of course my insulin was working like it should have, and I was still doing the things. So I had to put some more carbs back in my life, you know, you know, so I can, you know, kind of balance it out. I had to go down on my medication back down to a 5 instead of a 7.5. And so now I'm doing a lot better, you know, with these, you know, and not going low anymore. So, yeah.
Can I ask Anissa just to add something to this part of the question as well? Because I know Anissa has been a huge fan of Dr. Jason Fung, and I think it would be great if Anissa can give her take as well on insulin resistance as well. So over to you, Anissa.
Well, I think what I have been finding is my insulin sensitivity must be improving. And I think especially in the morning, because I'm finding on my drives to work that I am starting to, unfortunately, sometimes feel faint. And I've gone to the doctor, you know, we checked to see, is it my heart? Is it, you know, my blood pressure? What actually is it? You know, you're looking at, like Kim J, is Manjaro 7.5 milligrams doing such a good job for me that I might need to lower it? Because Joe, I was saying, I wish I had access to the quick pen so that I could maybe split dose. But I think that, because I felt that again this morning, but I just happened to be driving. I couldn't stop to take my blood sugar to see what was happening. But I do know that my insulin sensitivity is much better, because when I work out now, my glucose drops, I guess, like it should. But now I have to find that happy medium. Mm-hmm. So I am very low carb right now. I am at 30 grams of carbs at maximum per day. Mm-hmm. That might, as I go on, like once my glucose is in the normal level, not even pre-diabetic, I'm supposed to work with a dietitian to increase my carb tolerance. So, you know, I don't know how they'll do it. I don't know if I start with 10 grams and they did tell me I'll need to test more. So I had to buy more strips and more lancets. So I'm expecting that I'm going to need to do that sooner than later, because I think my body, with the help of Manjaro and some of my own habits, I think is starting to repair itself.
Good. Yeah. And I'd hate to jump, and I know, you and I have talked about this, but what you're describing is what my life was pre-Zepbound, especially when it comes to exercise. Mm-hmm. And I know we'll talk offline, we'll talk CGMs offline, but until this is, you've just described to me someone who get that CG. I know there's some, the barrier tape and some irritation there, but it's gonna help with that, and especially with your doctors. Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to have to go. I used to have the Dexcom G7. Okay. And my insurance stopped paying for it, because now my insurance only pays for it if you have an insulin pump. So I'm going to have to find an OTC CGM.
Yeah, the Stello, the same. So Dexcom has that Stello. So
Okay,
try,
so-
and I think there's some coupons out there too. But I mean, I think it's
Yes.
like, I mean, I know that we're nerding out on this separate. We know the audience is there, so we know y'all are there. But there is this.
But honestly, I feel like it's life
Stello.
saving. So
Yeah.
I need to know while I'm driving, specifically at that moment. I think it is the time of day and not the activity. So I think
Correct.
I get up early enough. So I do need to get it sooner than later.
And test at night. See what that blood sugar is before you go to bed, because that's
a good one, because I don't do that. So I do need to do that.
Right.
Test at
So
night.
like,
oh, go ahead, Kim. Mhm.
so like for me, I would test in the morning and I would test at night before I go to bed. I stopped because my doctor actually told me that I could test twice a week, but I was like, no, not doing that. I'm going to do it twice a day. So I try to test. I test in the morning, like I said, or whenever I get up to eat. Your morning is probably not my morning, and then I test at night before I go to bed. And so that's how I make sure that those numbers are not under or close to going under, and making sure I don't have hypoglycemia. But so definitely talk to your doctor and your dietitian about it. CGMs which is continuous glucose monitors. I think they are very, very good to help. Especially like for me, I did use a CGM for from like July when I got at the hospital up until December when I had to go and get an MRI for something else. And so I used it all that time. And so that's how I was able to, partly another way how I was able to get my A1C down, because I could see those numbers. For mine, it was like every minute, it's my glucose and everything. So I think it's very, very good to use, especially during these times, Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I forgot to answer a portion of Joe's question. So I do follow Dr. Jason Fung, and I do the intermittent fasting. And I think that could be part of my issue too. I don't eat breakfast. I do make a protein coffee, but as I'm driving, I'm not really drinking it. So I might need to move up drinking my protein coffee or eating earlier in the morning to try to help with whatever is happening to me. I'm just not sure what's happening to me.
But like you said, if you were to, Jane said, if you was tested at night before you go to bed, then you'll kind of know where it's at. So say if you were, for instance, at 75 at night, and you have 5 more to go, and then you're under what you're supposed to be, overnight, and especially if you're doing exercises and stuff like that throughout the day, strength training, things happen even after, you're done with strength training, you're still, your energy is up and everything is working, good within your body. So it may drop your sugar a little too low at night while you're asleep. And then when you wake up, if all you're intaking is a protein shake, the protein shake doesn't have a whole lot of carbs in it in itself. So you're probably needing more carbs in the morning, than just the protein shake. So if you do the test,
I think you're so right. So right.
Yeah. So if you do it at night, you'll know. Like for me, when I tested my sugar at night before I went to bed, I'm like, okay, where is it at now? If it's under a certain amount, and I'm not talking about under 70, I'm talking about under 80, then okay, let me go ahead and eat something real quick, because it depends on how long I stay asleep will determine, how it's going to look in, the next day. So that's why, when it's time to check it again. So that's why I said, okay. And then it got to the point where I'm like, even with that, it wasn't helping. So let me go ahead and just eat a little snack before I even checked my sugar at night before I went to bed, to make sure. And I made sure I had some carbs in there, and it's something small, nothing like real big where you have to sit up 3 more hours or whatever, but something to make sure that I know for sure I'm going to, be able to sleep and be okay with it, and that started helping me a lot. But when it comes to CGMs, I didn't use the Dexcom. That CGM was approved by my insurance. I used the Freestyle Libre. I paid $75 for 2, and I was using it was a Freestyle Libre 3. So every 14 days is when I changed it. But I paid $75. CVS is my pharmacy, and they have like little coupons that they automatically give us, so we don't even have to, like show the coupon or whatever. And so I used this, it was $75 to, get that twice a month. I mean, that's still kind of expensive, but I chose the Libra. That's the one they gave me and, told me about in the hospital. I started using it. So I just kept using it.
Yeah, there's a lot of options out there. And then even the
Yes,
carb
it
you do,
is.
it can be less than 10 grams of carbs that you do if you have to do it at night. Because the one thing that's and we've not, and I'll get if someone wants to drop the definition in, from the American, I've just been using stuff from the American Diabetes Association for definitions. But one thing that happens to all of us, diabetic or non, is called the dawning effect. It's usually between 3 and 5 a.m. in the morning, and that's when your liver produces, or your liver releases sugar in your body. So the fact that you're hitting those lows with that still happening, it's more than likely something that's occurring at night and stuff like that. But Delilah and Darian both put this. So not every carb is alike when it comes to having to raise hypoglycemia. So chocolate isn't going to raise your blood sugar, your blood glucose in time. It's too slow. Your complex carbs is going to take 15 to 20 minutes. And if you're dropping, especially if you're dropping fast, not going to be enough. Your orange juices, if soda is your only a non-diet soda with sugar, is useful. It's not the best, but it's useful. Your things. But Anissa, get you some of these, and not this brand necessarily, but it's called a glucose gel, and then of course the liquid.
Okay, yeah, I have glucose tabs, and you know what's odd is I have a problem with high fasting blood glucose, but I'm thinking once I get my day started, I feel like it must be dropping.
It is
just because of how I feel.
It is. It's a. So for those who are taking medication to manage diabetes, and you just said your insulin sensitivity has gotten like your insulin is basically like, finally, let's get this going. We're in that body, right? And so it's a 1-to-1 ratio for every minute of activity, especially intense activity. Well, it's not even intense. It could just be a walk outside or you getting ready for the morning, especially if you're rushing. It's a 1-to-1 ratio for every minute that activity, your blood sugar is dropping by one ml/dl. Yeah. So you could have been at 90, and by the time you're in that car, you've dropped to 70.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I better get that CGM fast.
Yeah, so we're getting probably too much into this.
Yeah, sorry everybody. Sorry.
Bellflower has a question. He says, I tested twice per day when my A1C was close to 13, and I was on insulin for about 3 to 6 months. When I got off of the insulin and my glucose and A1C stabilized, I was only testing fasting glucose in the AM.
And that's what they want to get people to. So, that's the goal for, for type 2 diabetics, that's the goal. So is to be able to do that.
Okay. Go back to the questions.
I think there was 2. I know I think Gray's had a question, and there was a follow-up to Gray's question.
Okay.
And while you're looking for that,
there was a question at 4:58.
4:58. Okay.
That was from Cookie.
Oh, Cookie. Yeah, Cookie had one too. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right, guys, you've got to be shorter with these answers. We've got so many questions.
We will. Yeah, we will. We'll be better.
Yep, I'll be fast.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wanted to say one thing.
Put a timer on.
There's a 15-15 rule out there. Sorry. So they want to, like, say if you go under the 70, you want to make sure, because rules change as time progresses. But it's a 15 grams for your fast acting carbs, which is your simple carbs. So just for instance, juices, regular soda, not the no sugar soda, but the regular soda, glucose tablets or gels, like Jane told, say it, honey, sugar, things like that, hard candy. I remember that back in the day, people would grab the hard candy, jelly beans, things like that would help. You wait 15 minutes and then you recheck your blood sugar. And then after you get it up, to a certain level, then that's when you go ahead on and you follow up with a little snack that has maybe protein as well as carbs in it.
That's
for those who don't know that. Yeah, it's 15 rule of 15-15. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Losing It with Grace says, I've heard that if you cook and chill foods like pasta or rice, they have less effect on blood sugar. Is that actually true?
I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, if you wash stuff, so I make homemade pasta. Only because the type of flour being used will, because I usually use wheat pasta because it has a good amount of protein in it, and then also semolina pasta, and then your different your brown rices and stuff. So yeah, so if you sort of basically you're calming down the glycemic process of foods, and so it does help. But it's still if you're if it also depends on the rice and pasta. So that's why I'm hesitant to say it's not a general rule, because the type of pasta and rice will matter. Um, so I'll just kind of leave it at that, and kind of, yeah, it's still going to matter the type of rice to pasta. So the cooling isn't going to take out the entire effect.
Right, it doesn't take out the entire, but it can increase the the resistant starch, which can slow down the digestion of it so that it won't spike so quick, or reduce the spike, at versus it spiking very, very high.
Okay. All right. Cookie has a question, and she says, are there different tests that run to determine if a person is type 1 versus type 2?
Yes. So for real quick, type 1s, you're gonna typically they're gonna run what's called a C-peptide test. And that basically, the C-peptide test, I'll get the definition. The C-peptide test is basically testing whether or not you have that particular peptide in your body. And if you don't have it, then you're more than likely, after you've hit all, your range is crazy. When I went into the hospital at age 14, my blood sugar was 1300. And so it was probably pretty clear that I was a type 1, but I've had the test done 3 times in my life, because I don't present as a typical type 1 diabetic. I'm not slender and all the things, right? And so I've had doctors not believe that I'm a type 1. And so I have done 3 peptide tests, and every time it comes back the same. And I just look at them. It's like, I hope you enjoyed your test. So, but that's what that is.
Okay. All right. Follow up to Gray's question. Hermione says, what's your go-to meal or snack that helps you feel balanced, not just in glucose level, but in life? Kim?
Something high protein, high protein, low carb, and high fiber. It is for me. The actual go-to one, I don't really have a go-to. I like eating a lot of different things. So in the morning, I typically eat probably a thing that is, I guess, more what you call it. I do it all the time, I guess I would say. So I eat 2 eggs, 4 pieces of bacon, 2 slices of low carb toast, and then I put a pat of butter on it, and then I put some Skinny Girl grape preserves on it, which has fiber in it as well, and it's low in carb as well. So that to me was, it's a high. And then I also have a protein shake, which is a Profi rather, which I still have some now. But yeah, so that's that. So it has high protein. It has the fiber from the bread that I get, and then as well as my jelly, and then it also has, and oh yeah, I forget. Don't forget I put the ground flaxseed on top of my jelly toast. So that's what I do too. So that's the high fiber of it, and then low carb, because my bread is low carb. It's keto friendly. Yeah. So that's what I do.
Okay. What about you, Anissa?
Yeah. I average about 15 ounces of protein for the day. So I try to split that up. So I'm moderate protein, low carb, and add fats. So just any type of meat that does not swim, and because I don't like fishy tasting foods, which really eliminates a lot of things out of my diet. But but like some sort of meat or eggs, and then typically like some salad greens and things that you will put in a salad, some cheese, and I usually make my own dressings with like either olive oil or avocado oil and like some white balsamic vinaigrette and some different seasonings. And I just try to mix it up. But I'm someone who I don't get bored kind of eating the same thing like my son does. I think I'm unusual with it. So if I am having chicken, I could have chicken wings and salad for lunch and dinner. I don't get bored with that. So it's kind of a simple diet. Now, I think that I will expand it more once I get some new results next week, because I do feel like I'm ready to start to have a little bit more carbs. And so then I think I'll expand my repertoire, because what I was eating before when I was sick, I still was eating the same main foods, but I was supplementing with cookies and candies and cake and soda. So, I'm eating the same things, just not adding all of the extras.
Okay. Miss Jane?
Well, I'll do it really quick because there's a good question from Grace at 5:04 Central Time in the chat. I put it in the chat, and all I'm going to say is this: it's similar to what I eat stuff that swims. I'm a fisher person. My husband and I's first date was on a boat fishing. We fish, so good nutrients. Anyway, carb counting. It's not as big. Because there's been this pendulum shift in the type 1 and the type 2 diabetic world of no restriction, eat anything you want. And so there's not an emphasis on carb counting as much anymore, but it's quite, net carbs. Carbs minus fiber equal net carbs. The moment you introduce fiber in with carbs, you reduce the impact of those carbs. So for those of you who do take meds, or especially if you take insulin, it's really important if you take insulin because you have to measure for the carbs. But essentially, if it says 30 carbs and 5 fiber, and you're giving blood sugar for 30 carbs, you're about to be in for a roller coaster of your life. You've just given yourself too much insulin because you've only actually intook 25 carbs. So, and that's what that's what a lot of type 1s and those type 2s who are on insulin, where they mess themselves up because they're not doing the net carbs. So they take too much insulin, get in a low, then they've got to treat a low, and now they're shooting up to 400. And then they get to play that game. Net carbs, net carbs, net carbs. And even if you're non-diabetic, net carbs are your friends when you're worried about how many carbs you're getting in.
Yes.
I thought CKD is important as well, but
definitely,
man, this diabetes is a lot. Okay, before we go to Grace's question, Delilah was saying that she noticed adding a deli meat wrapped around a piece of cheese with a pickle about an hour before bed, and since implementing that, she says she's no longer getting those 50s overnight. So that's just a little tip.
Awesome, Delilah.
It's got protein. There's still sugar and protein that's helping you.
Yes.
Okay. And then Grace says, honest question for diabetes friends. Does it ever feel unfair when people like me who are pre-diabetic are using GLP-1s for obesity are prescribed the same meds you need for A1C control?
I'm okay with it myself.
Same.
Yeah, it's always okay. We all deserve to be healthy,
Yes.
Yep. Medicine for everyone.
Yes.
Can I just add to that one as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please.
This is why I think it's really significant that we stop having opinions about whether obesity is a disorder or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's medically considered a disorder of the metabolic range. And as such, that's why GLP-1s help those with the metabolic disorder of obesity in the same way it helps those with the metabolic disorder of diabetes and the metabolic disorder of sleep apnea. That's just my 2 cents worth.
That was good 2 cents.
And if there's an unfairness to it, it's not to the people. It's like manufacture enough drugs that we all can have.
Right. There you go. That's it. That's it.
At
an accessible price. Okay, I'll stop now.
Right.
Go ahead, Ardreen.
Can we have some 100% for that as reactions? Because I think everyone agrees with that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay.
And then Cookie had a question at 5:15. Hopefully I didn't. If I skipped anyone else's,
Okay, let me go back to Cookie. Let me ask y'all this, okay? What was the first reaction when you learned about A1C or blood glucose levels meant, and how did that evolve over time?
Well, for me, I think I knew that when I was first diagnosed at 6.5, which was, you just make it as a type 2 diabetic, I was having really bad neuropathy. So it was also my weight. So, I was 250 pounds, I had flat feet, and I was finding like neuropathy kind of on the top of my foot. And when I took the test, I just was waiting for the phone call to come. I was not surprised. They immediately put me on metformin extended release. And within 2 weeks, the neuropathy was gone. So I don't know what metformin does, because I didn't even know how to change my diet or my exercise at that point. So I just knew that I was a diabetic. Now, what surprised me was in April. You want to talk about stunned? Sometimes the lab work comes to your email before you see your doctor.
Right.
The lab work came. I opened it up. I could have fainted. It said 14.1. I was angry at myself because I had skipped doctor's appointments and I knew I wasn't taking care of myself, but I didn't know that it was that far gone. And honestly, I didn't know how badly I felt until I started taking Manjaro and I started bringing those levels down. That's when I realized, like, oh my goodness, you slowly got so sick. So first time I was not surprised. The second time I was.
Okay.
For me, when I found out I had a 15.1, so I went to just a regular wellness visit, and when I went there, they said, "Okay, I'm gonna check your blood work," and I'm like, "Okay." And I said, "Don't check my sugar," because I knew in my A1C, I knew that it may have said that I was going to be diabetic, because some years later, before I found out I was pre-diabetic, and so when I got the test back, too, just like you, Anissa, I found out before my doctor can get back to me, and I found out like July 4th weekend, and so I was like, ooh. Oh, I didn't think it was going to be that bad. And so, so of course I went kind of into like, oh my gosh, kind of like a panic mode to a certain extent. I was like, I don't believe this. I was shocked and things of that nature. I didn't think it was going to be, like I said, that high. I knew it probably was going to be something, but just never that high. It was unbelievable that it was 15.1. So, of course, and then when they called me to talk to me that next Monday about it, so it took days, the whole weekend, and they called me that Monday, my doctor, my PCP, and they were like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing great." I wasn't feeling anything wrong, no symptoms. And so, and I was exceptionally well that day. And she's like, "You need to go to the hospital. your A1C is 15.1, and your glucose levels is over 400." So I had to go to the hospital. So that's how I felt, initially, is just in shock. And then as time progressed, I already knew, okay, Kim, you know what you got to do. You got to get into the low carb. You got to get those carbs down. You got to stop drinking the Coca-Colas. You have to go, out the gate. I knew what I needed to do, but I prayed about it and I asked God to help me through it, because I know that was something that, I was addicted to the soda, to the Coca-Cola. And then, I didn't have to change. I had to change like kind of what I ate, because I like eating out a lot. I had started eating out so much because of my, me going to work and the work hours. So it was just easier for me to eat out. I did eat in too. I know how to cook. I cook pretty well, but I ate out a lot because of being at work, long periods of time. So with that being said, I just got used to it. I had to stop that. But the job that I was on at the time, it was so stressful. So I started eating cake, which I love, the sweets too, but I didn't have to have it. I'm a savory person at heart. But for some reason, I started eating chocolate, and maybe because of the age too, the perimenopause, or I don't even know what kind of menopause I'm in. I am in something, but I got to find out from my gynecologist what is this that I'm in. But yeah, so that was a shocker. But like I said, once I prayed about it and everything, I found my community. I started looking at, I think it was the Patrice Denise first, because I looked on YouTube for people that had type 2 diabetes, as well that was on the GLP-1 medication, Manjaro. And boom, she was there. And I've been rocking with her ever since. At first, I wasn't talking to her, I wasn't in the chat. I was just listening. But yeah, so with that being said, I just said, hey, I'm going on a low, very, 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 very low carb diet. Not so much keto, but almost. And then I just was rocking and rolling out the gate, with it. So.
Okay. Miss Jane?
So mine's a little bit different because, like I said, with type 1, my blood sugar was 1,300 when I finally was arrived. There was symptoms, et cetera, et cetera. But when I finally arrived at the hospital, my blood sugar was 1,300. I typed it into Google just to see what the A1C related to that, and the first thing does not convert directly into a single A1C percentage. It did the math because there is a math, I guess, equation for it, and they got, I think they got 46.9. So take that for what it is. But what I will say is, we don't have time for the story of my diagnosis, but yeah, it took 4 orderlies because you go into a completely different physical state when your blood sugar is basically acidic at that point. It took 4 orderlies, and I was a 14-year-old who ran track, so that can give you the body image of sort of what I looked like. It took 4 orderlies to get me into the bed and into the hospital because I was fighting them. But anyway, but what I will say over the years, since it's been controlled, and for those of you, and I challenge each of y'all to go do this, go 2 years, go year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years back, and look at your A1Cs over the years. I did that like a few years ago. I took my 10-year history of my A1Cs, and anytime it was elevated, you could track it to something going on in my life. Not to say we need to get into a cortisol conversation, but whether I was traveling for work, family, went up. It's literally what Kim described there. Depending on what was going on in her life, that A1C was up. When things were good, I was a perfect type 1 diabetic, but the moment stress came again, it was up again.
Yep.
So, but yeah.
Okay. Cookie has a question, and she says, JC, what is the rise in children with diabetes attributed to?
I think I would say the same that we say for adults. Darian kind of said it best, individual humans. I think you've got to look at just how humans function and have changed over the last 100 years, right? What's our activity levels? What are we eating? What are we learning about obesity and genetics and all the things? I think it's a combination of all the things that we as adults are seeing. More than likely, why we're seeing it in kids probably just relates to what's the access to food that people have, and the type of food that people have. How are we've gotten busier, so the types of food people are eating, how they're functioning with activity. I mean, I'll just say this, our bodies are machines. We're meant to function with the things we've been equipped with, deficiencies and all. We're meant to function in a certain way, and when energy is not being processed as it should, either due to genetics, either due to injury, either due to the other things, diseases are going to unfortunately reveal themselves in different ways. And so that's the long and short of it, is what I'll say about that.
Okay. If you seek, Amy says, if any advice for someone who the doctor says is insulin resistant, but has done all of the recommended things for 9 months and doesn't feel they're seeing any signs of improvement. Anissa, you want to answer that?
I am not sure because I'm learning things now that I never heard of, like the 15-15 rule. I would definitely say go back to the doctor. That's the first thing I would say, to discuss, if there is an alternative plan. But other than that, I'm not sure.
Kim?
I would say the same as Anissa. Go back to your doctor, let them know. Make sure you're staying in contact with that doctor. If you're using a PCP, a primary care physician, go ahead and go to maybe a gyne. I'm sorry, I'm talking about gynecologist. You might have to go there too. You never know. Look, because a lot of people don't go to them either. But
You could be right. Yeah.
an endocrinologist, and that's a specialist, and they may be able to help you. Some endocrinologists have dietitians in their office, that they work with, or it may be outside of the office, but they can refer you to, and that way they can kind of help you when it comes down to the actual the food, the nutrition of it all. And also do your own research online. You have, of course, the infamous Google. You have Chat GPT, Perplexity, all these other places that you can go now to just see what what may suit you best. But just keep going forward, keep moving forward until you can figure out some things that's going to help you, because it's a journey. So
Everything that Kim and Anissa said, and I would have your doctor also go through your meds. What else? What are some of the other conditions? If you have other conditions, how are the meds impacting that?
right.
And I would kind of do a full workup of what medications you're on, what other complications or what other comorbidities that you have. Because as I mentioned before, diabetes touches everything.
Everything. Right.
Or sorry, cells touch everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be impacted. I think Joe wants to chime in here.
Yes, I definitely want to chime in, just because, remember, folks, I had IBS since diagnosed with that and was controlling it with FODMAP, which is cut out all those complex cards, since 2014. And then suddenly I found myself pre-diabetic. The same time we found out that I got that sleep apnea. So, and Amy, I know that that's something that you suffer from as well. We have to make sure that the comorbidities that we've got are being managed as well as they should be. And things like, I know as well that my hypertension was completely out of control, which goes back to what Kim was saying. It's the cortisol is helping your blood kick out a whole load of glucose. So again, go and speak to your doctor, speak to an endocrinologist, and get them to think about these other things, exactly what the three of them have said. Great points. I'm going mute again now.
Okay. All right. Felicia Marie B says, how can we best support our loved ones who have diabetes?
For me, I just need people to understand when I make different choices, whether it's with my diet, whether it is testing my glucose, just for people to understand that sometimes I may have to live just a little bit differently, and they can still do what they're doing, but just don't try to encourage me to do what they're doing. Just let me live.
Kim?
And just making sure, even to me with when you let them know that you do have diabetes, I think to make sure, because everybody, of course, in your family doesn't know, but letting them know that you have it, kind of sharing with them, you don't have to share everything with them, but just letting them know what's going on in your body, educating them about it. Hopefully they'll listen at you, because I know sometimes, like I remember, somebody in my family was like, okay, when they found that I had diabetes, it was like, okay, don't eat this and don't eat that and don't eat that and don't eat that, which you're already going through, you're feeling a certain way, about it, it may be, like I said, a shocker to you, or, you may feel like, it's a sentence, like you're on, a sentence that can make you leave this world. I don't want to say it on YouTube, but you know what I mean. So you have to be more mindful, be considerate of their feelings. Treat them with care. Treat them how you want to be treated. If you were to find out, something, that happened to you, you would know how you want to be treated. So therefore you want to treat them the same way when it comes to supporting them. So you don't want to throw everything down their throat about what they need to eat and what they don't need to eat. But it's good to kind of, like I said, educate yourself and just let them know what you're learning about it too. But just be easy with them. Go easy on them, especially when they're first learning about, diabetes. It depends on how you approach a person about things. Not so much that you're telling them it, but how you're approaching it. Sit down with them and just kind of talk it through like you talk about anything else, and just keep praying for them, and at some point, like I say, everybody is on a different level in their journey. Okay. And some people have not gotten on the ride yet. Okay. So even though they may know that they have diabetes or whatever other comorbidities they may have, but just, like I said, just be more, mindful and careful of how do you want to be treated. If you were in that hot seat, how would you want people to come and address you? That's how I feel.
Okay. And I have to admit, y'all, my mom found out she was pre-diabetic, and I would joke with her about her checking her blood all the time. I had no idea how serious diabetes was until today. So I will no longer be messing with her about that. Check your levels, mama. Check your levels. I'm gonna be calling to make sure she's checking her levels, Okay. Back to the
don't push her too much though.
Yeah.
So
I think she'll love the attention though. She likes attention. Okay. Can you share a moment when your A1C or glucose level surprised you, for better or worse, and what you learned from it?
Say that again.
Yeah.
Can you share a moment when your A1C or glucose levels surprised you, for better or worse, and what you learned from it?
Well, for me, I was, of course, like I said before, I was surprised that it was a 15.1 at the beginning of this journey that I went on to, lower it as well as control it, because it was 15.1, again, 3 times the amount that it should have been normal range, and so again, that was dangerously high. But for me to get it down in 5 months, and it could have really been 4 months, but I didn't get my A1C checked again until the 5th month. So I just say 5 months. So that's what's recorded. But yeah, to get it back down to the normal range is highly unlikely. People do it, but it's not normal. An everyday thing that people do. So I do thank God for that. That was a shock to me. But, like I said, I think prayer changed things, and the other things that I did to, help me as well. With lifestyle changes, the natural changes that everybody talk about, but not only that, the medications that I was able to get on. And I think Manjaro significantly was a help to me in this effort.
For me, I think probably it dropping from 14.1 to 6.7 in a little less than 3 months. So it was Manjaro, it was, just working very hard, because you better, I want to stay on this earth. I have this kid to raise, and, I'm always on him about, paying attention to the signals his body is giving and taking care of yourself. And I wasn't doing it. Mm-hmm. So I was pleasantly surprised. And then I realized, I can do this. I literally can do this. I can save my own life.
Yes.
And so that was a surprise, like getting that down. And now I'm just hoping that I got it down further. But I've just decided I'm not going to beat myself up if I go and it's not at 5.4. I'll just keep working. You have to make some adaptations and pivot again.
All right. And give yourself that grace, because remember, anything under 5.7 is normal. It's there's a famous French quote. We've changed it, but it's what is it? Don't let perfection get in the way of good.
Absolutely.
Because all that stress, guess what it's gonna do?
It'll do it.
It's gonna,
spike your cortisol, and then you're dealing with something else then.
Right. You always give yourself grace. I mean, even if you're not diabetic and you're just, on GLP-1s for, the other things that it help you with. Thank you. Lord.
Right.
But yeah, you want to make sure you give yourself grace, not just talk about it, but be about it.
Absolutely, live it, live it.
Live it every day.
Right. And I think Dee Dee had a really good question. Oh, perfect. Yeah, I wanted to jump in on this one. I'll give you the science, and then and then we can just have a good time about it, right? So at the end of the day, if you're eating less carbs, alcohol is gonna hit your body pretty hard. That's the trick. So back in the day, the trick to staving off the effects of alcohol was, guess what? Eat a lot of carbs, because it slows down the impact of alcohol. So if you're taking medication to help you break down those carbs and to lower those carbs. So imagine us all on GLP-1s and we're slowing our digestion down. That alcohol is going to have a free-for-all in your body because it has nothing to attach itself to. So that's kind of that's the science. And again, not a doctor, just I know I've been 20 as a diabetic on insulin. So I'll answer it that way. But essentially, yeah, alcohol needs some carbs to attach to not do as much damage. And then when it's not in there, it's gonna
Big
yeah,
impact.
it's not gonna have a good time. But I still drink it on occasion, not a lot. But if I go out to eat, but I'll do I do a limoncello spritzer because it's literally club soda and limoncello. So keep it simple.
Yeah, I was about to say, some people do still drink alcohol on it. I have not drank alcohol with type 2 diabetes, but yeah, I think you can. I think you just have to be careful with the sugars, in it, as well as, like you said, the alcohol consumption just in general, just for anybody, right? It can be hard on your liver and things of that nature, and just other parts of your body, your organs or whatever. So if you do decide to drink a little bit, make sure that it's more, like a light to moderate alcohol, consumption, and then, try to make sure you kind of space it out and things of that nature. Lower strength of how much alcohol, the percentage of alcohol that's in it is better than, of course, the ones that are like real foolproof, alcohol. So that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I haven't tried any alcohol since I've been on Manjaro. I'm a lightweight in the best of times, so I haven't tried it.
Okay. Question 5. How do you personally define success when it comes to managing A1C or daily glucose levels? Is it just numbers or something more?
For me, it's just it's all of it to me. It's the full thing in its totality. To me, it's about reclaiming health in general. That's how I look at it. Making sure I'm doing all the things necessary to make sure I reclaim my health and live my sweet, healthy life. So that's how I feel. It's the food, the nutrition that you have. It's the exercise. It's the hydration. It's how much sleep you get at night, making sure you're doing all that. All of that matters when it comes to, making sure that you're healthiest.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yes, I can. Let's see it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. How do you personally define success when it comes to managing A1C or daily glucose levels? Is it just numbers or something more?
I'm a data person, so I'm going to go with mostly numbers at first, so I can figure out. The numbers tell me what I need to do with my meals and my sleep and my exercise. So for me, my daily glucose is big because it helps me know how many carbs I can eat, or I can, like how I found out that drinking Crystal Light, very sensitive to whatever is in Crystal Light, and it raises my glucose. So for me right now, the numbers, until maybe I learn a little bit more.
Okay.
And for me, I noticed that because I remember when I first started, I noticed that any drink seems like, besides maybe the no sugar MiniMed, seemed like it was raising my glucose. But then at the time, I was so scared of it being any kind of raised. So I would, as soon as I would drink something and it had my, numbers going up, I'm looking at that CGM, that app, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it saying now? Because the CGM was connected to the app. And when I saw it going up more than a couple of notches, I'm like, oh my gosh, now let me go to walking. Let me do something to get it down again, and it had me all jittery and all over the place. That's probably cortisol too, but yeah, so I would do that. But, at some point I had to realize it's supposed to go up a little bit. Everybody's numbers go up some, whether you're diabetic or not. So calm down. It's okay. It didn't go up 50 points up, but it's balancing out your meals. Yes, I'm gonna drink that Crystal Light, but I'm gonna eat something with fiber in it. I'm gonna eat something with protein in it, and it's gonna balance it out so it won't spike it up like that. So that's how I learned how to be able to add the other drinks besides water into my diet or regimen. I can't hear you. Oh Lord, what happened?
My mic was muted. Nothing
Oh,
happened.
I'm like, I thought it was me again. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do now?
Flashback.
Right.
Did everybody jump in? I know I logged off. I got kicked off for a little bit.
Okay. How do you personally define success when it comes to managing your A1C or daily glucose levels? Is it just numbers or something new? Something more?
What is it? How do you really do the math on birthdays? I got through my 46th rotation on the planet. I mean, that's ultimately it. I mean, type.
Yep.
Who all remembers Still Magnolias from the 80s? I mean,
remember.
that's quite literally my understanding of type 1 diabetes. Now, she was a brittle, which is a whole nother category of diabetics. That character in that movie was called a brittle diabetic. They're always hitting lows. They, that was my understanding of what a type 1 diabetic was. And so I like getting older because it means I've managed this. And trust me, it's where I'm at today has not been that's been 1 year in my 32 years of this disease. So I'm here. That's how I measure it.
Thank God. Thank God. Okay. Next question. How has being on Zepbound or Manjaro changed your approach to managing blood glucose or insulin resistance?
I think it's improved my insulin sensitivity and just made it easier to not have to think about it quite as much. I still try to manage a lot of it with my diet because I was a part of a program called Verta Health. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a telehealth company that focuses on reversing type 2 diabetes. So you have a doctor, a dietitian, you weigh in every day and it goes to the provider. You take your glucose every day. It goes to the providers to put in any symptoms that you're feeling, and they'll tell you if you need to take magnesium or add more carbs. So for the first 3 months of my journey, I used them, and that helped me to figure everything out because they were checking in like about constipation, what are you eating, telling me that I needed to eat sooner. And then my insurance stopped paying for it. So I haven't been with them because I really think they might have better helped me to even understand what's happening to me in the mornings. So the Manjaro's, I think, key for just helping my body to kind of normalize or stabilize is probably a better word.
Yes, it helped manage. For me, it helped, and I guess you too, and so it helped lower our A1Cs. It helped lower our blood glucose levels so that we can at some point become more insulin sensitive with the low carb diet. That tremendously helps. So again, just being able to, do all the natural things that, we were able to put into place things that we already knew about, since we were coming up, of course, but we were finally able to put it into place and keep it there because of this medicine that we're on. It definitely is a tool that helped us be able to, do the things that we need to do naturally. Because before, like I said, I just found out last year that I was diabetic. So, but within this time period, I did learn that, everything that I tried to do before, it never stuck. And with the Manjaro, it's helping me stick to what I decided to do, and help me, keep control over what I'm doing. I don't look back and say, oh, I miss all these carbs, but I also learned that I could now put some things back into my life. Like I may get a Coke now. I may like do half Coke, half zero Coke, or a half Diet Coke. And that's every now and again. I don't want it like I used to want it. So, it definitely controls, my appetite a little bit more. Like I said, I never had a real big appetite. It's more so the foods that I ate that I chose to eat, and I wasn't exercising like I was supposed to, and things of that nature.
We're like twins, Kim J. That was me to a T.
Yeah. So when I listen at your story, sometimes I kind of laugh and I'm like, okay, yeah, we got a lot, and I found a lot in common. But I think that's it. So because of the things that we did, the lifestyle changes we made, it made us become more insulin sensitive. Again, like you stated. And so I think, controlling the appetite, the satiety that they talk about, and things of that nature, all of that helped with the blood glucose. And for me, I have several different things that I'm dealing with. I have type 2 diabetes. Well, first I started with the high blood pressure, then the kidney disease, and then that's when the diabetes came along. So I have all of those things that they say is not ever a cure for them. So and they all kind of can work together at some point in your body. But I do feel like because I got on this Manjaro, it's helping all of it. It's helping all of it. That's why I said I got to find a way to take this medicine. I got to figure it out, yo. So my last video and my last live, got to figure out something because I don't want to get rid of it, And if I have to take it for the rest of my life, I will.
Right. Okay. What's one myth or misunderstanding you've heard about type 1 or type 2 diabetes that you love to clear up?
I guess there's the people will say if you eat sweets, you'll become a diabetic. Like you have a cake, you become a diabetic. Now, it just so happened I did become one, but if I had just had one piece of cake, maybe not. I think it was all of that put together, and you do have to look at habits. But that was a myth that I heard a lot.
Okay,
having to stop eating fruit. That's a good one. Some people feel like you shouldn't eat fruit, or you can't eat any, white rice or white bread or white, flour and things of that nature. I think it's more so what you're pairing it with. Also how often you're eating it. You have to just learn to, just even the same thing with, obesity. It's not that you have to just take everything out of your life. You can eat these things. You can eat a piece of cake if you decide to. Just how are you eating this cake? Are you going to eat, your fruits your veggies, your protein, and then eat a little piece of cake? Maybe skip the rice. You can do that. But making sure you have that good order of how you're going to eat it if you decide to eat it. But you can't eat cake. It's not good to eat cake every single day, of course, for nobody, right? So, but I think it's, the order you eat it in. Fruit, it's okay to eat fruit. Like some people say, oh my goodness, you should eat a banana. You should eat let me see, bananas, grapes, what else? Pineapples and things of that nature. Well, when I was in the hospital, they gave me a banana. They didn't give me a banana. They gave me a pineapple. They gave me a grape, but it was like a little portion of it. It wasn't like I can't eat the whole, thing of it. but I can't eat some of it. And like I said, they gave me some protein, they gave me some veggies, and I had that for like a little dessert, you know. So it's a portion control as well as making sure you're pairing it with the right things and the order that you eat it in when it's time to eat it. But you can have a little bit, you can have a little fun. It's okay with that. You know, it's okay. Especially with us being on these GLP-1s, it's going to cut some of that, you know, craving for all of it, a lot of it, you know, or whatever. So I had to learn that myself. You know, after a while, I'm like, okay, Kim, you can give yourself something, you know, give you a little bit, you know, more of these things that I like when I'm going to different, you know, like events and things of that nature.
I think for me, it's not a death sentence. It's not.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's a management thing. But
Mhm.
the issue with, so depending on when you first get diagnosed, it can be very difficult. So if you're
Right.
5 years old and you get diagnosed with type 1, management is not really in your control,
Mhm.
right? And you've got to, do you have parents that are going to take the time to learn what they need to learn, to do what they need to do? Do they have access to it? Because I finally got my insulin pumps have been around for forever. I could have gotten it in, 1998 when I was in college, but I was a college student, not on, well, I had scholarships and grants and stuff like that. I was figuring out how college got paid for. So getting something like because it wasn't fully FDA approved, where insurance companies were paying for it. So access to things is to manage this disease. You have to have. This isn't a willpower thing, and it's not a discipline thing. It's a care team. It's a responsible care team. It's having those people around you to sort of give you that grace, understand the things you need, not tell you to finish your food when you're done eating. And then it's also an issue of you determining what lifestyle things you're going to do, whether that be exercise, what you eat, and what medicines you have access to. Those are decisions you have to make. And unfortunately, it's a disease that it doesn't arrive at any good point in one's life. Whether you're young, my dad was in his mid 40s when he's got what. Raise your hand if you're past mid 40s. Who's telling you what to do and how to change? We get into a lot of conversations of, why didn't anybody tell me I reached this size? What would you have done if they did? Same thing with diabetes. Someone's going to tell you to stop eating your donuts in the morning. And that's extreme, right? That's really extreme. But he's going to say you can't have all the rice, you can't have all this, you can't have all whatever. Because we hear it in dichotomies. Either you can have it or you can't have none. We don't hear what Kim just said about portion control or moderation or less than 30 grams of it. And there's a lot of work to think about that. When they say, oh, just do a palm size of something. Okay, my palm are,
Right. Exactly.
my husband who's 6'5", not my husband's not 6'5", but pretend my, your husband who's 6, are his palms. Whose palm size are we looking at to determine what a half a cup is? So it's not a disease that shows up at any good point in life that we want to hear from somebody else what we should be doing. So, but at the same time, it is not a death sentence, and that's the myth that has to go away. But it does require management.
Yes.
I'm going to start eating my veggies.
Yes. Harderine, when our garden is flourishing, we are going to meet once a week in our midpoint, and I'm going to give you veggies and give you some eggs.
All right.
So yeah,
we have a birthday in the building.
Right.
Happy birthday, Brenda Marlene.
Happy birthday.
Are we gonna sing? We've got to sing.
Okay.
Which song?
We're gonna sing
Always pick a
Happy
version.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. The GLP-1 choir made it there for Brenda's birthday. Hey, on a fabulous birthday, spending time with your husband. Actually, Brenda's now got comment that she just added.
Okay.
So I'll go back to mute.
Okay. Comments. Okay. She says, my husband is diabetic and he still doesn't listen. He eats what he wants despite his type 2, and he happens to be 6'4", and he is not overweight.
And it can show up. Resistance can show up. I mean, again, even someone who's not, there's resistance and sensitivity shows up in everybody. It's to the level that it reaches where those, what Kim told us at the beginning about fasting. Is it at a point where sustained over a 3-month period or long, is it elevated so much that you can now be considered pre-diabetic or diabetic, right? So, but this idea of resistance and sensitivity is hypoglycemia, all these things are occurring in our bodies. It's just, if you have the diagnosis, it's going to be more intense and severe. So,
okay. How do you handle those days when your glucose numbers just don't make sense mentally, emotionally, and practically?
Well, for the most part, mine kind of made sense. I could kind of figure out, like, if it was running high. Sometimes I did have trouble if it was running low, but for the most part, if it was running low, I have glucose tabs. I don't really have to take them often. In the beginning of my journey, I did. I might need to take them now, and I'm just not testing as often. When it was high, when it was super duper high, I found out like I wasn't even supposed to be exercising vigorously. I would go and get on this exercise bike, and then I found out like, oh, you're not even supposed to do that. So then I just started, I like sat up all night long. Like I didn't go to sleep. I sat up just waiting and looking for it to, to go down. So I guess, I don't know. I'm sorry. That's a terrible answer.
water, just real quick, water is your best friend when your blood sugar is high. I mean, dealing with it, but when your blood sugar gets elevated, start hydrating, and that will help bring it down.
Yeah.
And for me, I was exercising when it was real high, and I needed to go down. I did exercise, which I kind of explained a little bit about that when Jane had left. I exercised, and that helped mine go down. Yeah. Going up, for it to go up with the hypoglycemic episodes. Like I said before, I would just make sure I eat something to make it go back up, or drink something to get it raised back up. And you try to do the 15-15 rule that I explained earlier about making sure that you eat 15 grams of carb, check your sugars every 15 minutes, and things of that nature. That helped me. But just tweaking things is what it pretty much is. You want to tweak things when it goes up and down. I just start tweaking things to kind of see what I need to do. Again, a continuous glucose monitor does help in that effort too. If you want to use that, of course, it's your choice whether you want to use that or prick your finger a lot of times during the day.
And for me, when it's so again, I've been blessed by this device, and so it kind of gives me that's what I'm saying, CGMs. I know people don't want one more stick, but if you're dealing with this, especially while you're still fluctuating and figuring out your blood sugars as you're on a GLP-1 or you're not on one, a CGM is a lifesaver. So if it's in an area where it's going down and it's staying down, then I do the treatment. Now, if mine happens to be, I'm more particular about the 15-15 only because, again, being type 1 and there's, I'm getting insulin introduced in my body. So those who are type 2, y'all got the 15-15 rule is pretty standard and it is out there. What I would say, if I'm in the 80s or 70s, the 15-15 rule works for me. But if I'm anything lower than 70, I'm not waiting. I'm doing these, but these are fast. These work within like 5 minutes. My fast acting stuff, so I'm getting that in pretty quick. And then for the when they're in the highs, and it's a consistent high, meaning it's within the 30 minutes, it's not going down. Within an hour, it's not going down. So again, it's not, oh, it's high, let me go react immediately. So, I do my glucose, I put any sort of correction doses in there, but if 30 minutes later it's still at the same rate or elevated, and it's been like that for a few hours, I'm checking for, do I have a fever? Did I put my, a lot of y'all know all about scar tissue and the impact if a needle's in scar tissue. Did I insert my infusion set into potential scar tissue? Because that's meaning that my insulin is subcutaneous as well. It's just a subcutaneous shot. It's not intramuscular. So I'm checking, like, if it's elevated for a series of several days, then I'm checking for fever, checking for if I have an infection, if I have a cold or something like that. And then of course, if the other biggie is medicine. Has new medicine? Have you introduced a different type of medicine into your body that's potentially causing it to be elevated? Because there's a lot of medicines out there that elevate blood sugar. A lot.
Okay. Darla Harris has a question, and she says, "What happens when you can't get water in you?"
And this goes back to that question about elevation. If you're in a situation where you can't get water in you, if you have medication that treats insulin, then I would test your blood sugar and administer that. If you're heading into if you're in a situation where your blood sugar is going elevated and you don't have the tools around you to decrease that, and you're getting into the 300s and above and things like that, you probably need to go to you're going to need to see an emergent care or emergency in that situation. If that's the level of not being able to get water because you don't have access, if it's that you're not able to drink it, then whichever way you're getting liquids is what I would say is introduce, you've got to figure out a way to get liquid into your body.
And like I said, if you're talking about you're high and you're trying to go down, then you can exercise. It's often said that if you exercise like 10 minutes after you eat, and I say, like, for me, it was like 20 minutes after, I give myself 20 minutes after I ate, then that helped me make my glucose levels go down instead of, it raising so high.
And that's if you're, and let me add to that, that's if you're in the like 150s and below, but if you're above 180, you don't want to introduce cardio. So that I would put that disclaimer on that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just ask a question on this one? For many of us that are in the chat right now who are on a GLP-1, is this why it's so significant that we don't titrate up to the point that we're unable to handle taking food in or water, especially if we are pre-diabetic or diabetic? Because the idea that you can't bring your glucose levels down because you can't physically drink water, because you can't bear the thought of putting something in your mouth, is that why a lot of the physicians say we're not titrating you up just yet, for example?
I wouldn't say diabetes is the only reason for that. Right. That's just being able to eat and drink in general. Yes. But that, yeah.
But certainly, we don't want people getting to the point that they're taking a GLP-1 so that they can't eat. That's not the point.
Right. For me, yes, I say that. I think that you should try to make sure that you're doing all the natural things that you can do, because again, this is a tool to help us, control appetite and satiety and all that stuff. But it's not something that we need to just only depend on. Let the medicine do the work. Yes, we want to let the medicine do the work, but we also want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can do. So before I titrate up, I'm going to make sure that I'm checking myself first, and then making sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do. So if you're type 2 diabetic, and like I said, that's what I know, because I never lived type 1, so, or 3, or any of those others. But for me, I'm like, low carb is the key for me. So that's what I do. I'm not going to try to, if there are times that I'm going to eat and it's going to, my sugars are going to raise, but I do, what I do, like I said, I start walking, and that's what helps me. But when it comes, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do the water. I'm with you on that too, because water, and like I said, hydration is very, very important for us to have. But I know sometimes, even for me, like like right now, and as it's getting to the cooler weathers, sometimes I do have a little bit issue drinking as much as I would if it was hot outside, and I'm able to exercise out in the heat. So therefore, I'm noticing, okay, I noticed it last year, but this year I need to be a little bit more proactive. So again, like Jane said, find something that you can put in your waters. So, like the Crystal Lights, I like Sunkist. So, mix ins or whatever, I'll do that. You can do the protein, like the clear protein, because it's not just water, that keeps you hydrated. It's other things that can keep you hydrated too. Kind of sort of anything that you're drinking is going to help you hydrate. Even with your fruits, it's going to help with some hydration that you're eating. So, do your research also, y'all. Don't be scared to look at your, also look at reputable sources on the internet, but it's still good. And like I said, a lot of people are into this Chat GPT thing and some of the other AI, things now. Use those things. They are so friendly, user friendly to help you, on your journey. Don't be scared to do that. And also always talk to your dietitian if you are a nutritionist, if you can afford to do that, or your or your doctor, and let them know what you're facing, so that they can, kind of give you, and make them give you some, advocate for yourself, make them give you, what you need, so that you can keep going. Let them know that, you're serious about this and you're trying to do whatever you can to have a greater health span as well as a lifespan. I want both of them, y'all. So therefore, I'm going to do, like I said, what I can do. Sometimes, yes, do I fall off the wagon? Yes, but the me, for me, it's like, like I said, we're on a journey, so we do what we have to do. So right now, I'm like, okay, Kim J, you're think about what you're doing. You're getting into some winter months. So what are you going to do this year to make sure that you don't get dehydrated? Because dehydration hurts your kidneys. It hurts some of everything, all your organs in your body. So you want to make sure you're staying hydrated. And another thing I was saying, the Oath clear protein. There's other clear protein drinks that you can drink as well. You may want to check out. That way you can get your protein and get hydration at the same time. So that's what I would say.
What about going to get that IV? They put, I think, isn't that water or something like that? They put in
You
IV?
can, I mean, you can do the IVs and stuff, but the reality is how frequently, or if you're at a point that you're needing to get fluids via IV, you've got to have a conversation about what dose you're on a G.
Right.
And Darla did elaborate more on the GLP. And Darla, if you could indicate what dose you're on right now, if you're having a hard time getting water in, but you're saying it's mainly due to it's being distasteful, I would just try to kind of, with some of the suggestions here, try to introduce either the clear protein, I put tea, so I do a lot of herbal teas like lemon and ginger in my water. Maybe, I don't know if you prefer water lukewarm or cold, maybe just try different variations. Maybe you've got to do a certain bottled water, like, you're not just doing tap water or something like that. But first of all, I'm not opposed to infusions and all those things, but to stay hydrated, that getting an IV outside of having some sort of other comorbidity that requires that type of infusion, then we've got to kind of look at what's causing. I'm never going to say get off the GLP-1, but we may have to look at the dosage or just look at different ways to make the water, because I have heard from others that their taste buds have changed as it relates to GLP-1. Right. So it may just introducing different ways to get water in.
And you know what? I misunderstood. I thought you meant the liquid IV packets you put in water.
No. I'm talking about they have the IVs where they.
Yeah. I used to have to get that after chemotherapy. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you're at that level, be careful.
Yeah. And it's an option, but I mean, and some people do go to the the different IV places or whatever, and they, you can talk to them as well. I'm sure they got somebody that actually knows a little bit, and more educated about those things that can help. But you always we're always going to refer you back to that doctor.
You gotta talk with your doctor,
Your
right?
healthcare team. Your healthcare team in its totality. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Harjareen, before you go, I want to, because unfortunately, because we split our channels, we're typing responses and definitions, and it's not getting to all groups. But I want to highlight 2 books. So if you can go to the if you can go to 609 and highlight this. This is a pretty amazing book in 609 Central Time.
Okay, hold on.
Uh-huh.
I got glasses on, but I can't see that good.
Oh, trust me. I wish maybe hopefully if there's ever a capability, I don't know if there's a co-host capability on this. So that's one. Do the one above it first. So
Okay.
6, yeah. It's maybe 2 or 3 above that one. It's called Think Like a Pancreas. I highly recommend there's a book out there called, and we'll get to the bright spot one, Think Like a Pancreas by Gary Scheiner. So he's a type 1 diabetic himself. He treats he knows diabetes, let's just say that. He's been on a GLP-1 since 2005 treating his condition. So that can tell you sort of he knows the world. But in his book, he talks about the nuance of the do's and don'ts around eating, exercise, GLP-1s, all the things. And so getting down to that nuance when it's okay to do cardio, when it's not okay to do cardio, when it's okay to do strength training, how to break down the foods. Now, so that's kind of like, if you're a science nerd and want to get down, what is my pancreas doing? That's the book you want. Now, if you come down to that, the next one, Bright Spots and Landmines, and the full title of this one is Bright Spots and Landmines. The guide I wish someone gave me when I was diagnosed is kind of the full title of that book. This is a little bit more user friendly, is what I would say, and it does the same thing. It gives you that nice breakdown of macros. And this book is written, again, Adam Brown is a type 1, but he has a website called the diaTribe. And it's all things diabetes, all the types, all the everything. Even on his website, he has, and this isn't a plug, but it's just information, but how to get access if you are in a community or people who are not able to access medication. Like, there's a lot of links that he has about how to get coverage for and payment or lower prices for medicine, and how to talk to your doctor about getting medication, things like that, if income is an issue. But that's on his website. But in the book, goes through, because he does he's like you, he does a less than 30 gram, like he breaks, like he barely does carbs, and everything. So, but that's a really good book as well. And then for a lot of the American Diabetes Association has everything you ever want to know about diabetes on it. And a lot of the definitions that we provided today are on that American Diabetes Association website. So that's all I wanted to share, just to kind of, because I realized halfway through it, I thought our chats went out to everybody's, but they don't.
Okay.
And there's a new one. I don't know if you guys know the American Diabetes Society by Dr. Eric Westman and Dr. Kim Berry. I can't say I follow it too much, but they're trying to also help us, help our community.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hermione has a question. She says, what role does community like this live play in helping you stay motivated or informed about your diabetes journey?
You know what? I don't know that I follow that many people who are diabetics online. I probably should. I've been following more people who are GLP-1, and I noticed that they're like, most of the people are on Zepbound, like how I take Manjaro. So the community is helpful, but I just find that I am mostly following GLP-1 people and what they're eating and the workouts that they're doing, and then trying to add sleep in.
Okay. Kim J?
I don't I do follow some people that are strictly, just giving diabetic information out here on YouTube. But for as community is concerned, GLP-1, I haven't found a whole lot of people that are on Manjaro yet, that's sharing their stories, that are diabetic. So, but just community in general to me is good. I knew a lot about how I can get my A1C down, and things of that nature. I already knew about that, a lot of that. So, but I'm about the support of, and then I know some things, little things I may be able to find out, from the community. So therefore, I follow, the people that I follow, and just to enjoy them, in general. But most of people that I follow is Zepbound. It's a few Manjaro people, but I think it's important to get more, I guess, of this information out on our channels. Say the three of us, because we have channels. And then just so that other people can know about it, because this like I said, for me, it's mostly people that are doing this for sleep apnea, or or obesity, or things of that nature. Okay.
And so I as far as the community, so I don't separate Zepbound and Manjaro because it's the same drug. It's the same tirzepatide, so I don't separate. So I follow GLP-1ers for the kind of the awareness for the community, for this relationship. I mean, weight loss, the journey of weight loss, while I know Joe has the stats for the UK, God knows what the stats for the US are. Weight loss, however it is being done, weight loss, weight maintenance, however it is being done, while it is a billion-dollar industry, if not trillion, and while it has millions upon millions of, maybe even billions of people that are on the journey, it can be very lonely. Being a type 1 diabetic, being a type 2 diabetic, it can be a very lonely, insulin messes with the cognitive ability, and so it can have a lot of impact to our mental, emotional, spiritual self. So community is one of those things, because it reminds you of why you are doing it. It reminds you of the life. I can watch you, Harderine, and see this full life you're living. I can see what Joe did today, going out and walking. It's like, that's why I'm doing it. I can see Anissa and Kim's story about being at a 15 A1C and where they're at today. And there is hope. I think someone said it in our last live, or what's the famous quote? Keep hope alive. These are the, this in order, community is required to be able to thrive a lot of ways, so that you don't feel alone, even if the journeys don't look the same. And I think that's sort of why what community means to me, regardless of what community they're in. And if you haven't done and Joe, correct me if you haven't done and if our friend, oh my gosh, if Miss Vicky is still on the call from Foodies Vacations, if you have not participated in a virtual dance party with the cruise community, you've not lived. You've not lived. I'm saying it. So that's why community is important.
There's the replay available on Foodies Vacation.
Go to Foodies Vacation and participate in a virtual dance party.
So like you were saying, the loneliness, of it all, that's definitely true. Also, the emotional side of it too. So even though I may follow more probably Zepbound people than I do the Manjaro people, just the emotion of it all, it kind of helps. Because like when you're talking to your family about it, they're like, okay, but then sometimes they get sick and tired of hearing it, right? GLP-1, whatever. And they, especially if they're not on it, but just to be able to talk to somebody else that kind of knows, what you're going through, even if it's not, because like for me, I'm on not only, to reclaim my health in general. So type 2 diabetes, CKD, obesity, a little bit of sleep apnea, never been diagnosed, but was told that I have it. Never been like actually physically diagnosed, but officially diagnosed. But just hearing all of the stories, like you said, weight loss is big. So Zepbounders, they're trying to do weight loss, and that might be the only morbidity they have. But just being able to come together as community, we're better together. So and just to be able to cheer each other on and kind of just talk to each other about it. I know it's a lot of people that follow me on my channel that don't know anybody may not have know anybody specifically close to them that have diabetes, but they just follow my channel because they want to learn a little bit more about Kim J. So with that being said, it's the same thing for me with them. I just love people, and being able to connect, so that we, like I said, we're just better together. No man is an island. So we will do this thing better together. We can get, we can cheer each other on. We can, enjoy each other's journey. Because the time, like she said, sometimes it is really, really lonely out there. Some people don't have this at all in their families. They may be estranged from their families. It's just them. So I think it's very important for us to be, to have found this community, to love on one another and, and just help encourage and cheer each other on.
Can I just add a point on that one? Not a point, a question. Question for everyone in the chat. Who in the chat has either pre-diabetes, has diabetes, or has family members who have that? Just wanted to know, just in the chat, just for information's sake. So if you don't mind asking, if you don't mind answering, would you just let us know? Because I think that was a really good point that all three have said, that Reset with Anissa, Kim J from Kim J Healthy Sweet Life, and our good Calamity Jane from JC Calamity Jane, they're part of this community as well, and maybe they're going to speak a bit more about it. So make sure you're following them. Make sure you're following, what was her name again? Was it Patrice? What was her channel name?
Patrice.
Denise.
Right.
Brilliant. So that Patrice Denise, all with dots between. Just to make sure that, as you say, we're all a great community. And if you guys are going to speak more about it, knowing that there's an audience for it, then here's your audience right here.
And I can understand because I said it on my video this week. I hesitate to talk about type 1 because, well, type 1 diabetes in general. Even if I talk about type 2, because like I said, I have seen the impact of type 2. And lived with it and had to, I was my father's caretaker. So there can be even having this today, there can be a concern, and as Darium stated, anything we say, you've got to take to your doctor, and you've got to understand how your body works. What I will say about being at what while there are days I have my own moments of anger, depression, etc. when it comes to having diabetic. There are most of my 365 days on the planet are filled with this disease has blessed me because I know my body. And because, again, I get blood work done very frequently, and most people do not, and then they get surprised when they have a condition because they're not getting checked. You have people who don't get checked once a year, 5 years, 10 years, and then get surprised when all of a sudden there's this diagnosis upon them. So I appreciate what diabetes sort of creates, but it also understanding your body in such a way that you know what works and what doesn't work for you. So you can clear out what is the chaff from the wheat? Is that the biblical saying? I can clear out what's good for me, what's useful for me, and what's not. Right. And I think if people begin to look at their diabetes in such a way that there's more to inform you of yourself, I think you can approach the condition in a completely different way. There's a difference between saying, and I know how you asked the question, people are saying it this way. There's a difference between saying I have diabetes, but instead say I am managing. I am someone who is managing and living with diabetes, type 1 or type 2 or 3C, 1.5, whatever. Because living with and managing it, it's a different type of language and being. So thank you, Darian, for the correction there. Yeah. So Hardreen, where you want us to go next? You're driving the bus.
Yes. Okay. What's one? Wait a minute. Let me see if I've done this. What one thing you wish more people understood about living with diabetes? What's one thing you wish more people understood about living with diabetes, especially when it comes to A1C or blood glucose levels?
Like Jane said earlier, it's not a death sentence.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
We can manage it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If you could go back and give your newly diagnosed self one piece of advice about A1C or glucose monitoring, what would it be?
Don't despair. Keep your head up, get educated, and follow the advice of the doctors.
Eat healthier so you won't get it in the first place. And exercise and hydrate and sleep better, all of the things.
Okay. Now let me ask you now, type 2 is where you want to say eat better, right? Is type 1 the same?
My disclaimer was I'm always talking about type 2.
Okay.
I don't know enough about the other types.
But because it involves insulin and glucose, what your inputs matter. Mm-hmm. Because for all of them, your inputs matter and your output, right?
Right.
So eating but the advice I'd give myself is don't stop living. I waited too long to go to Italy. So don't stop living life just because this diagnosis shows up in your life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when you say that, it makes me think of don't stop believing. Don't stop believing.
That's it. Don't. Oh, please sing. Now you gotta sing it, Kim J.
No.
You're gonna throw out that song. I need the words.
Joe, that's Joe. Joe, go ahead and sing it, honey.
Oh man, some of y'all can belt out Journey.
Don't stop believing. I'm not going to attend that high note.
That's all right. That's all right. They know how. They know. Some of them are singing along with you in the chat.
Okay, ladies, that's all the questions that I have for you. But let's look at the chat and see if anyone else has any more questions. Have you looked at it, Joe? Does anyone else have a question? Okay, Delilah. Delilah says she don't care what anyone calls me as long as my insurance covers my homie. They can call me anytime.
Yes, Delilah, and that's why I'm saying if you got a diagnosis, you run out the door and get your Monjaro while it is covered.
Absolutely.
Celebrate.
I didn't see any more questions, but it was really insightful to see just how many people are either living with pre or diabetes or have family members who are living with it. Mm-hmm. So I hope everyone found this live really informative. Darla says she's really glad that she came across this live. So
and
I'm glad we discussed it.
Yeah. And while you have it, this is the one thing I didn't say. Have fun with it. When I was, I was a teenager in the 80s and 90s, shooting up insulin in school. You better believe I had fun with people when they looked over at me and saw a needle in my hand, and they like gave me a second look. It's like, and I'd be, yeah, sorry, that's me. And then the first time someone saw an insulin pump, sometimes I can be a benevolent, awful person, but someone asked me of course, most people think it's a pager. It's like, yeah, I still rock a pager. And then This is awful. And then someone, just because they just were so curious, but I said, well, I use it just to keep, it keeps, just it's my just energy juice. But just have fun with it when people ask questions, or if you're concerned about crowds you're in and you're having to treat your condition and stuff like that. You have to have a lifted spirit when it comes to sort of who you are and what you function as. But just have fun with it.
For me, this was very educational. Not that I didn't have respect for people that were diabetics, but that are diabetics. But y'all have really opened my eyes to something more. So I appreciate you, ladies.
Same here. I've learned something new. So, this
Never stop
community
learning.
this community just gives and gives and gives.
Yes. And that's the beautiful thing about it. So that people get mad because you talking on YouTube to the community and not them. It's okay. We learning.
Yes. Right.
We're learning.
Yes.
We're being educated about a lot of things. So thank you, ladies. And thank you all in the chat too. You had some valuable information as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This has been another fantastic behind the scenes. It's gone on for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I know I would really like to thank you all for your time, especially Anissa and Kim J, who joined us today as our type 2 diabetic experts. And of course, Calamity Jane as type 1 diabetic expert. And of course, the fabulous moderator, the driver of the bus, Miss Hargerine, D. Busway.
And our moderator, Joe.
That's right. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like she's working it.
Yeah. And Imani, who's been doing some background work through all the chats.
Thank you,
her and
Imani.
Joe, so thank you.
Thank you.
And we all have to be better about this. All small creators. To the replay crew, make sure to drop your questions on any of our chats and on any of our channels. Drop your questions. Subscribe to all of us. Subscribe to everyone you've seen in the chat. Replay crew, if you have questions, if you have feedback, drop it in the comments.
Let's connect and grow.
I love that.
Thank you all
Yep.
for listening in today. Thank you for your questions and everything.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Yes, your support.
And you are stronger than your struggles and brighter than your fears. Keep pushing because greatness is in you.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yes.
Now, I would like to not have the last word. I'm going to let somebody else have the last word. But I'm just wanting to let you all know that 8 o'clock Eastern, Anchor Moments are having a panel live, and our gorgeous friend Mayor Mindy, she's one of the panel members, together with our new friend Grant Campbell. He's also going to be on the panel as well. So if you are free, if you've got nothing else to do today, 8 o'clock Eastern, that's 7 o'clock Central Time. I don't know what other time it is. I don't know what time it is in the UK now. It's late. But if you're available, let's go and watch them and support them as well.
Where is it at again? I missed it.
Anchor Moments.
Anchor Moments. Okay.
Moments.
Yes. Gina. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know who wants the last word. Harderine, over to you.
I don't want the last word. I just want us all to be fantastic. And that's good enough for me.
Yes. Awesome.
I think we're going to end with that.
One of Joe numbers.
That
Great
was
stuff.
wonderful.
Yes. Yes,
So,
Miss
yeah.
Coco.
She asked a question.
No, she said, remember, there is
Good
no
reminder.
comparison. Everyone's journey is different.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. Oh, okay. Yeah, I put it up there. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all, and we will see you next Monday.
All right. Have a good. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. Low Carb Queen. She also has a channel, and she's type 2 too.
Yes.
Yes, she is.
So check her out as well,
She's
y'all.
always cooking something up good.
And Delilah Rodriguez.
Low carb. Let's sing our song. Get low. Get low. High low.
Get low. Get low.
I
I always get the next section.
I didn't learn it, but I like it. It's catchy.
I love it.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will see y'all on the other side.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you all for having us.
Thank
Peace.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.